Welcome to Inner Swim, a space for anyone called to tune within. If you're intuitive, creative, a deep feeler, earth lover, or a sensitive soul, you'll feel right at home here. I'm Jaylin, a wellness mentor and yoga teacher supporting women to reconnect with their inner truth, root into their authentic energy, and live in harmony with their nature. So let's pour a tea and dive in. I'm so glad you're here. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Inner Swim podcast. Welcome back to our little cozy corner that we have going on here. So today we're talking menstrual cycle tracking 101. So I'm going to do my best to give you very practical first steps for those of you who haven't maybe been practicing menstrual cycle awareness or cycle tracking, but you're interested and you want to begin. So if this is brand new to you, you're definitely in the right place. And if this is not brand new to you, but maybe you want a refresher or a little bit of a different perspective, or you just enjoy thinking and talking about these things, then welcome to all of you. So, menstrual cycle awareness matters. It's a topic I'm deeply passionate about, and it matters not just for our fertility, although that is a very important aspect of it, which is tied to our creativity as people with wombs, but it's also important for our energetic health, our physical health, and our emotional health, and even our spiritual health. So there's no aspect of your being that your menstrual cycle doesn't touch into. It's a full body, full mind, full heart, holistic experience. So it's important. And I always like to set a little precursor to menstrual cycle tracking by saying that it's not about controlling your cycle. Definitely not about control. It's not about right or wrong or dissecting anything or anything like that. The place to begin with menstrual cycle tracking is just simple awareness. Just being aware. And actually, awareness could be the beginning and the end of this whole practice for you. If you just become more aware of your cycle, it will reveal to you amazing things about yourself, about your life, about how to align your outer life with your inner world, and so much. So let's talk about some of the key benefits then of tracking your cycle and menstrual cycle awareness. So some key benefits are understanding your energy patterns. So although the menstrual cycle has a universal pattern to it, the way you express that pattern and the way that pattern moves through you is unique to you. So it's both understanding the cyclical pattern of the cycle as it exists in nature, but also understanding your unique kind of flavor and signature. It supports hormonal balance, which is key to our physical, mental, emotional health, and also key to those creative aspects of life, like fertility. It helps us to plan our self-care. So if you feel like you just don't know what you need some days, maybe you just need a little cycle awareness. And having that awareness is very grounding. It can be very grounding and affirming when we are aware of where we're at in our cycle and what that might mean for what we need on any given day or week. Then that can be very helpful for just planning ahead. For instance, not maybe planning a whole bunch of social events or launches during menstruation, for example, can be very helpful so that you don't get to that place where you are feeling like you just want to rest and take it easy and you're kind of frustrated with your past self for booking all of these things. So having the awareness throughout the month is very helpful. It can help us plan our work and even our exercise, our movement routines, our rituals and the things that we get up to help support our hormonal balance and also to honor our energetic state. And also, menstrual cycle awareness helps us to spot irregularities and gives us some key insights into our health. So, one of my teachers used to say that menstruation is like a health report card. So, how we move through menstruation gives us some key insights into our overall health. So, it's important to get to know what's happening in our bodies from the inside out. So, again, I just want to emphasize before we get into the actual breakdown of the different phases of the cycle and how to begin tracking it, I want to emphasize that this is a practice of self-awareness rather than control. So we're not practicing menstrual cycle awareness so that we can get anything out of our cycle or so that we can coerce ourselves. In fact, this is kind of the opposite. It's about honoring ourselves, being in touch with our nature, being in touch with our feminine energy, and giving ourselves more space to express that and to be that and to be authentic in what is coming through us. So, modern lifestyles tend to override our cyclical patterns, and they tend to promote hormonal suppression. Even something as normalized as, hiding that we are on our period, that we are in menstruation. Socially, we can feel like we have to kind of hide that part of ourselves. So, menstrual cycle awareness is about coming back home and integrating these parts of ourselves that we may have been taught to suppress, that we may have repressed, that may have been oppressed, and to, again, be life affirming and self loving again. So, let me just give a brief overview of the 4 main phases of the menstrual cycle and roughly when you can expect them to happen and how to begin tracking your cycle. So, maybe you are in menstruation currently. Maybe you're currently bleeding. So, this would be the first phase of your menstrual cycle. If you're not currently there, maybe you can think back and remember when was the last time that you were bleeding. So menstruation is the first phase of the cycle. And so the new menstrual cycle begins each month on the first day of blood flow. So a very helpful way to begin tracking your cycle is to think back to when the first day of your blood flow was, or perhaps to maybe think forward to when that might be. If you have a very regular cycle, this can be quite easy. And so on the first day of blood flow, we would mark that day 1 of the cycle. Now, menstrual cycles can range in total from 25 to 35 days. A quote-unquote average menstrual cycle length is 28 days. So I'm going to go based off of that average cycle length, but I just want to be very transparent here that I myself have a 31-day cycle. And so I've always heard this, 28-day menstrual cycle, 28-day cycle as being what is normal and expected. So please don't take my 28-day rough guideline as like a hard and fast rule or a cycle length that you should have, okay? Everyone's a little bit different, but it helps to generalize to just kind of get the overview. So day 1 to about day 5, 6, or 7 would be the first phase of the cycle. So whenever your blood flow stops, that would signal the end of menstruation. So that might be 5 days after it begins, 6, 7 days. It could even be 4 days after it begins. So again, everyone has their own little rhythm in this, but roughly let's say day 5 or 6. This is menstruation. So this is a time where the womb, the uterus, sheds the uterine lining, which creates the flow of blood, And so this is a time of shedding old energies, old identities, just old parts of ourself with that release of blood. And this makes menstruation also a time of renewal. So we are both letting go of the old and welcoming a new cycle. So your energy here might be a little lower than usual. You might feel a little more introspective or a lot more introspective. And so you're encouraged to really honor that. Some really great rituals for menstruation are rest, taking time to just do nothing, literally, just lay and be, drift, daydream, spend as much time in that space of reverie as you can. Maybe some restorative yoga, maybe enjoying some grounding, nourishing foods. Dark chocolate can be a welcome treat here during menstruation. So, in a word, rest is really key during menstruation so that you can give your body and mind the space to let go and allow for a sense of renewal. So, if you haven't tracked your cycle before, it can be helpful to begin on the first day of your next bleed so that you can know exactly where you are. You can mark that on your calendar, day 1. You can mark it in a journal just with the date and day 1, or you can use an app. So I personally use the Lively app. I'll be honest, I haven't done a deep dive into cycle tracking apps because I tend just to use them purely for the tracking of my days, not so much for the other uses of it. And so I'll be honest, I've only ever used the Eve app and the Lively app. The Lively app just had a little bit better of an aesthetic feel to me. So maybe you want to check that out. But you can really just use your calendar on your phone or wall calendar, just mark the day. So now phase 2 of your cycle is called the follicular phase. In this phase, your sex hormones, especially estrogen, begin to rise, and this brings a sense of rising energy. So you might feel a little more awakened here, a little more playful, a little more creative, social. This is a great phase for starting new projects, starting new routines, setting some goals or intentions, enjoying some light exercise but moving the body, and enjoying a little bit of lighter foods. So again, this is a brief overview. Everyone is very unique, and please take this as a rough guideline. But this phase unfolds from the end of the bleed phase, so let's say around day 6, until ovulation, which usually occurs around day 14 or 15, just following menstruation and up to ovulation. So this is the second phase. Phase 3 of the cycle is ovulation itself, the ovulatory phase. So this is a really short phase in the cycle because it's the occurrence of ovulation itself. So ovulation is when one of the ovaries releases an egg, an ovum, and that egg will travel through the uterine tubes and make its way to the uterus for potential fertilization. So ovulation typically happens around day 15 of the cycle. So we can call the ovulation phase roughly days 14 to say 17. So anywhere between those days, ovulation is most likely to occur. And how do you know if you've ovulated? Well, there are some signs. So you can take your basal body temperature, it's called, which is taking an internal temperature. So with a thermometer, you would record your temperature. And when you notice your temperature rise about 0.5 or even a full degree, this indicates that ovulation has occurred. You can also take notice and take stock of cervical mucus. And when the cervical mucus, the discharge that comes out of you is clear, sticky, it's often compared to like egg whites consistency, then you know that ovulation is happening. So those are some key ways to know that ovulation has occurred. So in phase 3, in this ovulatory phase, there can be a sense of boosted confidence, boosted social magnetism, wanting to connect with others, wanting to sort of get out there and express yourself. So, energy for some people can really dip around ovulation, or for some people, it can really be elevated. But in either case, it tends to be more outward focused, and we tend to be a little more expressive during this phase. So, some great rituals for ovulation would be collaborating with others and socializing with others, higher intensity movement practices or exercises, and really indulging in your creative projects, and just generally taking the foot off the gas and letting yourself kind of express whatever's coming through you, whether that's creativity, fertility, social connection, sexuality, whatever it is. And then the final phase of the cycle is the luteal phase. So the luteal phase will begin just after ovulation. So let's say roughly days 17 to 19, it will begin, and then it will take you to menstruation. So again, it starts roughly days 17 to 19, and it takes you right until menstruation begins again. So this is the fourth and final phase of the cycle. And here we see a rise in progesterone. And with that progesterone hormone, it's known as the nesting hormone. So the luteal phase is often characterized by wanting to nest, wanting to get a little cozier, wanting to start reflecting a little bit more, tidying up, turning within, slowing down, winding down, and in general, just feeling a little bit more intuitive and in touch. This can mean an increase in emotional states, emotional waves, sensations in the body. So it's a very kind of ripe and juicy time in the cycle that can also, for some people, present some emotional struggles, mental or even physical aches and pains. So this is a time for definitely slowing down your pace, honoring your energy, and for most people, just taking it easy and spending a little time tending to your needs is very helpful during this pre-menstrual phase. Also honoring the emotions that are coming through you, taking a little time to maybe journal and reflect, and also start to complete some stuff, some undone tasks, tie up some loose ends, and balance that with kind of taking more time to nourish yourself and maybe indulge in some comforting foods, maybe spend a little time wrapped up in a blanket. So whatever your needs might be in this phase, really honor them and listen to them, and definitely don't let yourself call yourself crazy for needing that little extra time to just cry, okay? This is the phase for feeling your feelings. If you haven't all cycle, now's the time, and kind of allowing yourself to process all of the things that have unfolded through the cycle before you arrive in your new cycle in menstruation. So again, really practical steps for how to start tracking your cycle. So simple tools here. So all you'll need is a journal or even just a piece of paper where you write down the date of your first day of blood flow. Mark that as day 1 of your cycle. And then from there you can count it out, or you can use an app that counts it out for you. Again, the one that I use is Lively, but I'm sure there are dozens of apps to choose from these days. If you want to take this cycle tracking a step further, you can even start to take some notes. So take note on every day of your cycle, or every week, or in every phase of your cycle. Start just jotting down, what was your mood like in general that day? What were your energy levels like? Did you have any cravings? How did you sleep? Did you have any social desires? Did you have any creative bursts? Did you have any intuitive feelings or messages come through? So just noting these things without having to do anything about it, but just noting these little details about yourself. If you do this for about 2 to 3 months at minimum, you will start to notice patterns. So menstrual cycle awareness reveals patterns to us about ourselves. And it's really cool, and it's a way to kind of consciously evolve yourself and also just better understand yourself. So after tracking, your moods and your energy levels and the things that came through to you, after about 2 to 3 months, you'll start to see these patterns emerge that allow you to actually read your own energy and read how your experience is through the cycle. So the idea is that when the patterns that we're experiencing, when they're unconscious, then they will definitely repeat and repeat and repeat. But when we bring awareness to them, they become conscious. And then through consciousness, we evolve. So we might track that in our premenstrual phase and that luteal phase. And let me give you a personal story. I started menstrual cycle awareness when I noticed this reoccurring pattern happening, that about the day before I would bleed, I would go into this very kind of erratic emotional state where I would feel like I'd want to burn everything down, and I would often get into heated emotional arguments with the people closest to me. So that alerted me to something was happening in that phase. So I started tracking my cycle, and I started tracking my moods, and I started to notice this reoccurring pattern happening in my luteal phase. And once I was aware of that pattern, I could then choose, do I want to just let this pattern kind of continue? Or now that I'm conscious of it, do I want to start listening to what are my deeper needs that are coming through here? How can I better understand myself in this phase? And how can I kind of take that awareness inward to better understand myself and my energy so that it becomes a tool for healing? The awareness becomes a tool for healing. And then through that awareness, through the healing, you start to evolve through your cycle. These reoccurring patterns, they start to evolve, and you start to become a little more free from the kind of unconscious, repetitive experience that maybe you've been having. So that's taking things, kind of a little bit further. But I would say if you're just starting out, just try for 2 to 3 months, 2 to 3 cycles, tracking and just being aware. Just bringing your awareness every single day to your cycle. And if you forget one day, then come back to it the next day. And it could be really just as simple as when you wake up in the morning, or in the middle of your day, or at the end of your day, or whenever you think of it, just say, today I'm on day blank of my cycle, and that would land me roughly in blank phase of my cycle. And how is it to be me today in this place? What am I noticing? Are there any sensations in my body? Are there any thoughts coming up in my mind? Are there any impulses I'm feeling, or things that are drawing me to them, or people or places? What might I need in this phase? So again, awareness is the beginning and the end. It is really the whole thing. So just before we wrap up here, here's a tip for those of you who are either no longer menstruating but really want to connect with this cyclical energy, Or maybe you're on a hormonal contraceptive that changes your cycle quite a lot. Or maybe you are just having a very irregular cyclical pattern. Maybe your cycles vary from 15 days to 40 days. Okay, so that's quite irregular. So for those of you who are just kind of not fitting into this model that we've presented here, what you can do is follow the lunar phases. So the moon goes through a 29.5 day cycle, and it begins with the new moon phase when the moon is totally dark. It gradually waxes until the full moon, and then from the full moon, the moon gradually wanes back to the new moon phase. So this very much mirrors the menstrual cycle in terms of the pattern and also the energies that come through at each phase. So if you're just wanting something to ground into, something cyclical, something feminine, and your menstrual cycle is making it maybe a little bit challenging for you to find that flow, then you can lean into the lunar phases. You can lean into the moon. And chances are, if you are experiencing an irregular cycle and you're not, perimenopausal or nearing menopause, but if you're just experiencing an irregular cycle in the middle of your cycling years, well then by connecting with the lunar cycle, chances are you will start to gradually balance out your cycle just because you're bringing awareness to it and you're basically giving your body and your psyche and your energy system permission to find your natural flow again. You're tapping back in, you're tuning back in. So that's a beautiful thing. So some closing remarks here. Awareness leads to alignment. Awareness is the beginning and the end. It is the whole thing. So just by being aware of your energy levels, your mood, your creativity as you shift through the month from phase to phase, from day to day, just being aware is the whole thing. And that's where all the self-discovery happens. So maybe start today. Simply note where you are in your cycle and set an intention that beginning today, you will take the first step toward inner harmony by bringing more conscious awareness to this beautiful cyclical unfolding that is happening within you. And lastly, I want to invite you to check out the Wisdom of the Cycle mentorship program I offer on innerswim.com. So this is my website, innerswim.com. And I offer a 4-week Wisdom of the Cycle mentorship program where we do a deep dive into each phase of the cycle. And it includes one-on-one sessions, at least at the time of this recording. It will include one-on-one sessions where we will have heartfelt discussion and uncover personally what your cycle means to you and how it's moving through you. And it also includes self-guided practices, PDFs, resources, all sorts of lovely ways to just really immerse yourself in this cycle awareness and your womb wisdom. So again, that's available on innerswim.com under courses and events. So if you're interested, definitely pop on there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is jaylyn@innerswim.com. That's JAYLYN@innerswim.com. By the way, I am a menstruality mentor, so I did take the year-long menstruality leadership program with Red School so that I could officially, be certified to lead people through menstruality, through awareness of the cycle. I'm also a women's yoga therapist, and I've done some really deep study with my wonderful teachers, Uma Dinsmore-Tully, Alexandra Pope, Sharni Hugo Wurlitzer, and so many others. And they've provided me with so many amazing tools and techniques and practices But really, where my mentorship comes from, where my teaching is sourced from, is the inner connection that I've been able to develop over years of practicing menstrual cycle awareness, honoring my inner rhythm, tuning in, and really just embodying this way of being. And I'll tell you, my entire existence completely changed when I started practicing menstrual cycle awareness. It was like I unlocked more of myself. I unlocked more of my powers. I unlocked harmony and just beautiful, lovely connection with myself. And so I vowed to be a guide for others through this because it's so, it's sitting right here. It's one of the closest things to us. It's as close as our breath, the menstrual cycle. And yet, so many of us are somehow turned away from it and disconnected and just feeling so far from this thing that is so close. And I do believe that all the keys to our healing, if you're experiencing pain and discomfort, all the keys to your healing you can find within you. But sometimes you just need a little help to find them and uncover them in yourself. So that's why I'm a mentor. That's why I'm a menstruality mentor. And so if you have any questions about menstrual cycle awareness or womb wisdom or yoga or any of these practices that I offer, please do reach out, jaylin@innerswim.com. I'll put my email down below, and I will stop now before I go on any more about how much I love menstrual cycle awareness. Thank you so much for listening, and happy cycling. Jema. Until next time, go well.